good evening. Tonight, we turn to a crime that has horrified California and reignited outrage over a justice system too lenient with those who abuse second chances. In the quiet community of North Highlands, Sacramento County, 77-year-old woman, beloved by her neighbors, was found brutally murdered and dismembered inside her own home. Her killer, as it turned out, was a man who should have been behind bars. This is not just a story about murder. It's a story about a system's failure, human cruelty, and the terrifying truth about what happens when remorse is nothing more than an act. In July 2022, 47-year-old Darnell Erby entered the life of Pamela May, a kind, elderly woman who lived alone. Reports say he had acquainted himself with her. A phrase that sounds harmless until you realize it means he watched her, studied her, maybe even spoke kindly to her. But behind that smile hid calculation. Behind civility hid intent. He crawled through a gap in her fence and slipped into her home, binding her face and hands with her own clothes. For days, investigators believe he kept her alive, trapped in the place she felt safest. What went through her mind as she realized she could not escape? What kind of terror lingers when your own home becomes your cage? Herbie stole from her, yes, but what he wanted went beyond theft. He tried to transfer the deed of her home into his name. That single act reveals something monstrous beneath the surface. Not just greed, but possession. He didn't just want her belongings. He wanted to erase her existence and claim her life as his own. After killing Pamela, Erby returned to the home several times. He dismembered her body and packed the remains into garbage bags. She was, in the words of investigators, dismembered beyond recognition. Think about that. The erasure of identity taken to its literal form. And yet, despite the brutality, what stands out most is not rage. It's control, precision. The crime scene was disturbingly organized, showing that this was not a moment of panic or insanity. It was methodical. He knew what he was doing, and he believed he would get away with it. That confidence came from experience. Erby had been in prison before, sentenced in 2017 to over 12 years for burglary. But thanks to California's nonviolent offender early parole program, he was released early. Within 2 years, he was free, and Pamela May was dead. I ask myself, how does the system define nonviolent? Can a man who breaks into homes, stalks strangers, and manipulates others truly be called that? Officials in Placer County twice opposed his release, warning that Erby was dangerous. The warnings were ignored. Bureaucracy won. When the news broke, the question spread through Sacramento like wildfire. Who failed Pamela May? Was it the parole board, the policymakers, or society itself, too eager to believe in redemption without proof of change? Criminologists describe offenders like Erby as predatory opportunists. They study vulnerability, then exploit it. In his mind, Pamela was not a person. She was a means to something. Money, shelter, a sense of power. His actions suggest a pathological need to dominate, to play God. And yet, when I try to imagine his state of mind, I wonder, did he ever feel remorse? Did he look at her face, the woman he bound and silenced, and feel even a flicker of guilt? Or was she already an object, stripped of humanity in his mind before the first blow was struck? Some psychologists call this instrumental violence, violence with a goal. Unlike crimes of passion, it's cold, strategic, efficient. It's the kind of cruelty born not from impulse, but from intention. Erby's every step from entering the home to forging documents fits that pattern. But what makes it even more chilling is what happened next. After he killed her, he didn't flee. He came back. He cut her apart, methodically placing pieces of her into bags, ready to discard what was left of her life. It wasn't just about disposal. It was about domination, the ultimate act of control. When police arrived, alerted by neighbors who hadn't seen Pamela in days, they found her remains before Erby could finish his plan. And in that discovery, they also uncovered the lie, the illusion that rehabilitation had worked. District Attorney I. Morgan Geer spoke bitterly after the sentencing. Our community wants to know why this man was released after serving less than half his sentence. I asked that same question. How many times must this story repeat? How many victims must pay for optimism for the belief that every criminal can be reformed by time alone? Pamela's home, once a small sanctuary filled with books, plants, and framed photos, became a silent witness to her suffering. Even now, neighbors pass by and lower their voices. Some still leave flowers at her gate. "She didn't deserve this," one said. None of them believe justice can ever truly balance the scales. During trial, prosecutors described how Erby tried to justify his actions, how he portrayed himself as misunderstood, as if society owed him something. In his mind, breaking laws wasn't a crime. It was survival. But that rationalization is what defines a psychopath: the ability to excuse the inexcusable. If you look deeper, though beneath the surface of evil, you see the cracks in the system that let it thrive. We call these programs nonviolent offender reform. But what data can truly measure the potential for cruelty? How do we predict empathy, or the lack of it? Perhaps the bigger tragedy is that Pamela May's death could have been prevented twice over. The warnings were there. The history was clear. The risk was known. And yet, he was released. That's what makes this story unbearable, not just the brutality, but the predictability of it. In the end, the courtroom heard the sentence, life without parole. Darnell Erby will die in prison. But for many, that isn't closure. Because justice, after the fact, doesn't restore safety. It merely acknowledges failure. And I can't help but wonder what goes through a killer's mind. When he hears life without parole, does he finally feel the weight of what he's done? Or does he still believe he's the victim, trapped by a system that caught him, not by conscience? Somewhere in that quiet California neighborhood, Pamela May's spirit lingers. Not as a ghost, but as a question we keep refusing to answer. Why do we keep releasing people who show us who they are? Evil doesn't hide in the dark. Sometimes it walks out of prison in broad daylight. And so tonight, as we report her story, we're not just recounting a crime. We're examining a failure, systemic, moral, and deeply human. A failure that turned mercy into murder.